Imagine you're at a party, a room full of people talking, laughing, drinking. You scan the crowd. You notice who's loud, who's quiet, who's anxious, who seems confident. You read their faces, guess their moods, feel who's nervous, who's lying, who wants to go home. Now imagine someone else is scanning the same room, but not for emotions, not for connection, not for meaning. They're scanning for utility. Who's insecure? Who's easy to manipulate? Who can be useful? Who can be discarded? That person might be a psychopath. Let's talk about what that actually means. Psychopathy isn't evil. It's not serial killers and movie villains. It's a personality disorder defined by lack of empathy, lack of remorse, shallow emotions, grandiosity, manipulativeness, charm. But here's the twist. Most psychopaths don't commit crimes. Many are successful, charismatic, respected, because they've learned to blend in. Let's talk about what they see that you don't. Most people walk into a room and feel it. You absorb the energy. You pick up tension. You smile back when smiled at. But a psychopath? They observe. They calculate. They map the room strategically. They look for the most socially anxious person, the one trying too hard, the one who's isolated, the one with something to prove, the one who blushes when complimented, the one who says sorry too often. These are entry points, not to friendship, to control. Let's talk about emotional blindness. Functional MRI studies show that when most people see someone in pain, their empathy circuits light up. But in psychopaths, those areas stay quiet. Instead, the areas for reward and goal pursuit light up. This means, where you see suffering, they see opportunity. Let's talk about masking. Psychopaths don't feel emotions like others, but they learn to mimic them. They study people, copy their expressions, mirror your tone, fake vulnerability. Not because they feel it, but because it gets results. You think they're bonding. They're hooking you. And when you let your guard down, they decide how useful you'll be. Let's pause. The psychopath in the room doesn't stand out. They don't look dangerous. They might be charming, funny, magnetic. But inside, they're watching everyone like a chessboard, not wondering what people feel, but what they're for. You're talking, laughing, sharing something personal, and they're nodding, smiling, locked in. You think you're connecting, but what you don't see is that they're not listening. They're profiling. Let's talk about how a psychopath communicates. They don't just hear your words. They scan for weakness in every sentence. You mention a breakup? Now they know you're lonely. You say you don't get along with your parents? Now they know you crave approval. You laugh too quickly at their joke? Now they know you want validation. This isn't intuition. It's predatory pattern recognition. Let's talk about charm as camouflage. Most people think charm is warmth. But to a psychopath, charm is a tool. It's not meant to build intimacy. It's meant to disarm you. They use intense eye contact, sudden intimacy, quick flattery, perfect mirroring, coincidental similarities. You think, we just click, but they've studied you, adapted to you, constructed a version of themselves that matches your desires. And you didn't fall for them. You fell for your own reflection. Let's talk about the absence of emotional resonance. In conversation, most people respond to your pain. They flinch, soften, reflect. A psychopath doesn't. They respond with intellectual curiosity or strategic silence. They might say all the right words, but there's no pulse behind them, no flicker in the eyes, no tension in the jaw, no visceral empathy, because there's nothing inside them to resonate with yours. Let's talk about gaslighting as reflex. When you start to question them, they don't defend. They restructure reality. They'll say, "You're imagining things. You're too sensitive. I never said that. Why would I lie? Are you okay? You seem off." They sow doubt, like seeds, and watch it grow in your mind. Soon, you don't know what's real. And the only anchor you have is them. Let's talk about selective vulnerability. They know that being cold all the time is suspicious. So they invent backstories, wounds, struggles. But notice, their stories never show weakness, only suffering that makes them seem noble, misunderstood, heroic. They weaponize vulnerability to lower your guard, to gain your trust, to secure your loyalty. Let's talk about mirroring. Psychopaths often become exactly what you want. You like indie music? So do they. You've struggled with anxiety? So have they. You love animals? They rescue cats. But it's not coincidence. It's construction. They build a persona tailored to your emotional blueprint until you feel like you've found your soulmate. But it's not connection. It's control. Let's pause. The language of a psychopath isn't loud. It isn't cruel. It isn't even noticeable. It's surgical. It's strategic. It's engineered to bypass your defenses. By wearing your trust like a mask. You think this is a relationship? A friendship? A collaboration? But to them, it's a game. And you're a piece on the board. Let's talk about how a psychopath plays. The goal is not love, not partnership, not even satisfaction. The goal is dominance. To see how far they can go, what they can take, how much you'll tolerate, how easily you'll obey. Let's talk about testing boundaries. At first, it's subtle. They cancel plans last minute. They joke in ways that sting. They ask you to keep secrets. And when you hesitate, they charm you, apologize, blame stress, make you feel special for understanding. You forgive. They log that data. Now they know. You'll bend. Let's talk about shifting power. They create a dynamic where they're always one step above you. They don't say, "I love you" first. They don't return texts right away. They praise you in public then, criticize in private. They alternate warmth with withdrawal, and you start chasing, not just them, but your own sense of worth. Let's talk about how they drain you. Over time, you'll notice you're more anxious. You doubt yourself more. You apologize too much. You isolate from friends. You obsess over making them happy. You think you've changed. But what's really happened is that your identity has been rewritten. Let's talk about how they isolate you. They don't forbid you from seeing others. They just plant seeds. I don't trust your best friend. Your family never really gets you. You're so much more yourself with me. And one by one, you pull away from others until they become your only mirror. Let's talk about reward and punishment. You do something they like, they shower you with affection. You question them, they vanish. They sulk. They turn cold. It's not a conversation. It's conditioning. Your brain learns. Compliance equals closeness. Doubt, distance. Let's talk about discarding. Once you stop serving a function, once you resist, ask too many questions, stop feeding their ego, they don't confront you. They erase you. They ghost. Or turn cold. Or blame you for everything. And you're left wrecked. Confused. Trying to understand what you did wrong. Let's talk about why it works. Because you weren't stupid. You weren't blind. You were targeted. They saw your kindness, your empathy, your trust, and they used those gifts as levers. Let's talk about the aftermath. You don't just feel hurt. You feel hollow. You question every memory, Every word, every moment. You wonder, was any of it real? And the worst part? You miss them, because they made themselves the center of your emotional world. And now you don't know who you are without them. Let's pause. You weren't in love. You were in a game where the rules changed constantly, and only one player ever knew they were playing. They're gone. Or maybe they're still around, just colder, just watching, just less interested. Either way, the damage is done. And now you're left with the question no one else dares to ask. What was that? Let's talk about what it's like to realize you were with a psychopath. It doesn't hit all at once. It arrives in flashes. You replay conversations. Moments that once felt romantic now feel rehearsed. Jokes that seemed harmless now sound cruel. Compliments feel like hooks. And you start to see it. Not just who they were, but who you became around them. Let's talk about the internal collapse. Being targeted by a psychopath doesn't just break your heart. It breaks your compass. You stop trusting your intuition. You second-guess kindness. You flinch at manipulation even when it's not there. Because the real legacy of psychopathy isn't trauma. It's confusion. You were pulled into a fantasy. You felt loved. You felt seen. But now you realize none of it was real, except your pain. Let's talk about recognition. Psychopaths leave patterns, not chaos, not drama. Patterns. They often love bomb early, mirror excessively, flatter strategically, isolate gently, shame covertly, withdraw emotionally, control through charm, leave abruptly, and always. They never feel guilt. Let's talk about the mask. Psychopaths don't feel the way you do, but they've learned to simulate. And the better they are, the more convincing the mask. That's why so many are. CEOs, lawyers, politicians, doctors, spiritual leaders, even therapists. Because when charm is performance, and empathy is imitation, and morality is a costume, they rise, they dominate, they shine. But behind closed doors, they extract, exploit, and move on. Let's talk about recovery. It doesn't start with anger. It starts with grief. Grieving the illusion. Grieving the time you lost. Grieving the version of you that once believed. And then, you rebuild. You relearn what love actually looks like. You make slower connections. You notice red flags. You honor your gut. You stop apologizing for your boundaries. You stop justifying mistreatment. You stop confusing intensity with intimacy. And slowly, you become immune to the mask. Let's talk about your strength. People don't talk enough about the strength it takes to walk away, to face the void, to feel the collapse, to choose clarity over comfort. Because psychopaths don't leave you empty. They leave you hollowed. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still asking questions, still willing to look at the truth. That makes you stronger than they'll ever be. Let's close with this. A psychopath sees people as pieces, as puzzles, as prey. But you are not a piece, not a reflection, not a tool. You are a whole human, capable of pain, yes, but also of healing. And every time you tell the truth, every time you refuse to shrink, every time you love with boundaries, you tear off a piece of their mask. And in doing so, you become free.